Just like the state of New York, the state of Georgia also tried to put Trump away based on the one conversation he had with the then state secretary, Brad Raffensperger, asking him to find 11,000 some odd votes. Now, this was used as a point that Trump was trying to basically steal the election of Georgia, and a case was built. But that case has fallen flat in a court of appeals. It might still be argued in a higher court, and it might even find its way all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. But I'm just going to walk you through what has happened thus far and what have been the mistakes that the Democrats committed in this case. Small request to all of you to please like this video, and if you have not subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe to our channel. Here we go. Let me give you a bit of a background on what happened in 2020 elections in the state of Georgia. When the counting was going on in the evening on the day of election, Trump was ahead comfortably, I would say, and he had declared victory, only to find out the following day morning that there were so many postal ballots against him that he lost Georgia. Not only that, Georgia had 2 senators. One senator was Republican, one senator was Democrat, and it was expected that at least one of those will get elected, and it ended up being that both senators lost from the Republican Party. So there was a net flip of a senator from Georgia into the Senate in the United States. So what this ended up happening was that the Democrats won the White House. They had a majority in the Senate, and they also had a majority in the Congress, which is why from 2020 to 22, a lot of decisions, just like the way Trump is doing now, took place. But this time I think Trump has gone one step more. He has done a lot more in terms of rapid fire decisions. So this is the story. Now, even after the election was over, there was a chance for the Republicans to restore parity in the Senate, because one of the Senate seats had to go for a re-election. And even in that, there were a lot of allegations that some votes which have been identified to be fake should not be counted. But a Democratic Party functionary's sister, who happened to be a judge, ruled against that and allowed those 4,000 votes to be counted. What is the problem here? Conflict of interest. And the judge should have recused herself, but she did not. I'm going to touch upon that also. What I'm trying to say is, I'm not taking any sides here. I'm just reading it and I'm telling you the way I see it. And these are the data. If you want more information, feel free to read all the articles that are listed in the reference link section. So what happened? The Georgia Court of Appeals upheld a lower court's dismissal of 6 counts in the 2020 election interference case against Donald Trump and others. The court dismissed counts including allegations of soliciting public officers to violate their oaths, such as Trump's phone call to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, urging him to find 11,780 votes. Now, Brad is also a Republican. At that time, the governor of Georgia was also a Republican. So somewhere there was a feeling of betrayal that Republicans are themselves not coming to the rescue of a fellow Republican, Donald Trump. Be that as it may, Brad did not do what he was asked to do. Not only that, this conversation got leaked. And as all this dust was settling down in the 2020 election counting, this was played out, saying that, Trump is a villain, he has lost it fair and square, that, he shouldn't be doing this, and that he should be tried for suggesting to find 11,780 votes. Now, who are the names that we are going to be discussing here? I'm just going to run them down quickly. Rudy Giuliani, a former New York City mayor and a Trump attorney. Mark Meadows, who was the then chief of staff for Donald Trump. John Eastman, an attorney. Kenneth Chesebro, an attorney. Jeffrey Clark, a former assistant attorney general. This is at the federal level. Jenna Ellis, an attorney. Robert Cheeley, another attorney. Michael Roman, Trump campaign official. David Schaefer, former Georgia Republican Party chair. Sean Still, Georgia state senator. Stephen Lee, pastor from Illinois. Harrison Floyd, leader of the Black Voices for Trump. Trevian Kuti, publicist. Sidney Powell, an attorney. Kathy Latham, former Coffee County GOP chairwoman. This Coffee County is going to be the one that will be looked at much more closely in this monologue, as well as in the days and weeks to come, whenever this trial again surfaces. Misty Hampton, also known as Emily Misty, former Coffee County election supervisor. Scott Hall, Atlanta bail bondsman, Ray Smith III attorney. So what happened? The indictment that was filed by the then district attorney of Fulton County, Fani Willis, accused Trump and more than a dozen others of a scheme to overturn Georgia's 2020 presidential election results. A word about the Secretary of State of any state. If that person certifies one as the winner, that stays. Doesn't matter what the count is. And something like that is what I think Trump was looking for, because he was convinced that the election, that there was fraud in the election in Georgia and many other states. He was convinced. I'm just saying. And in fact, looking at all the data, I wrote a book, Who Painted My State Purple. You should read that to understand how many different things happened over the country. How is it that every one of them satisfied many conditions that precluded a recount, so that nobody could recount any of these things? It's a fairly well managed campaign, if you will, if you want to say that, well, this election was stolen. If it was fairly well managed and it was done in a way that was hard for someone to come in and say that there was malfeasance. But the margin of victory is where things went wrong. The margin of victory was like 10 million votes, somewhere in that ballpark. So that's where people said, how the heck did so many more people vote in the 2020 election? Then it was explained that it was COVID, therefore people voted by mail. You have heard all this saga before, so I'm not going to dwell on that more. But this one incident got turned into a lawsuit. Unfortunately, the judge, Scott McAfee, dismissed the 6 counts due to insufficient detail in the indictment, a decision supported by the appeals court. So the lower court has said ruled against the state of Georgia or this prosecutor for Trump, let's say, and the Court of Appeals has upheld that. The next thing the state might do is to go to the next higher level. But I think it is not going to happen, because I will tell you why if you wait till the end of this monologue, because I have an explanation as to why this is not going to go farther than this. So what was the problem? Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis was removed from the case by the Georgia Court of Appeals last month. This is in December, due to an appearance of impropriety over a relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Who's Nathan Wade? Nathan Wade was the prosecutor appointed in this case. And who was the district attorney for that? Fani Willis. So, and these two were boyfriend-girlfriend. In fact, there are records to show that they went to, I think, some island in the Bahamas and things like that, and all that stuff it has played out in the media in great detail. So it has been established. So what happens here? Again, a conflict of interest. A district attorney chooses a hand-picked person, and that person happens to be her boyfriend. So this again is a conflict of interest, just like I told you about the other thing. And the name of the Democratic politician is Stacey Abrams, and I'm going to come to that at the end of this slide deck, and you'll understand what that second conflict also comes up. Now, Willis has appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court to reverse her disqualification, arguing there was no actual conflict of interest. See, this is the problem when people in the same community start becoming boyfriend-girlfriend. There can always be perceived conflict of interest and actual conflict of interest. So where does one draw the line? That's the question. Trump's lawyers opposed Willis's appeal, arguing that her removal was necessary to ensure fairness and address the appearance of impropriety. I think I've told this thing many times before, and I'll repeat it again. A judgment delivered by a judge should not only be fair, but should also appear to be fair. See, this is where the problem comes. When you have all these conflicting things happening in the background, and then a ruling comes or a judgment comes, one side is going to lose, one side is going to win, and one side is going to always complain that this is a travesty of justice. If the Georgia Supreme Court now upholds Willis's disqualification or refuses the appeal, the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia will appoint a new prosecutor. So it's possible that they could go back to the lower court with a new prosecutor and try this case all over again. However, I think that is not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. Now, the new prosecutor, the said new prosecutor, could pursue the case, reduce the charges, or dismiss it altogether. With Trump's second term as president, it becomes uncertain if that move is going to be taken by the state of Georgia. So what is it that's new? Okay, you have removed one conflict of interest. Can you prove that there was no malfeasance in the conduct of elections? Because something else played out in the 2024 elections and perhaps in the 2022 elections also. Now, the Republicans will have a lot of data, actionable data, that will prove that somewhere some things are not being answered by the people who are conducting the elections in Georgia. This is just an observation that has come from looking at so many other articles that came out. In fact, many of them even have video proof, video clips of people, taking bunch of votes, then filling it up themselves and then putting it back, stuffing it back into the ballot box. A lot of stuff has happened. Arizona State and Georgia State were the ones that had the maximum number of allegations of this nature. I think this is another problem for the people who would like to continue with this case. Now, what was the original number of people who were charged? Donald Trump and 18 others. The prosecutors alleged that Trump led a criminal racketeering enterprise aimed at unlawfully overturning the 2020 US presidential election results in Georgia. So all the defendants faced racketeer, influence, and corrupt organizations, RICO statute, with penalties ranging from 5 to 20 years in prison. If Trump was convicted in this case, there is no money involved here. This is just the basis of that one telephone call. And that has been recorded and played back. So whoever was ruling, that judge also would have had an opportunity to listen to that call. And yet they have said that there is insufficient evidence. I think there are some rules about what can be admissible as evidence. I think this is what I've told you in the past also, that in some states in the United States, if you're going to record a conversation, you have to obtain consent from the other person that you are recording a conversation. So whose side was Brad, the Secretary of State of Georgia, batting for, Republicans or Democrats? That's the other question that many Republicans ask. And at that time, Trump's hold on the Republican Party was not as firm as it is today. Right now, all his adversaries stand vanquished. The last two will get kicked out in a few years. And I think if this will become basically Trump will become the face of the Republican Party. I mean, he already is for all practical purposes, but that is what it's going to be. In a few years, you will see that a legacy of Trump will start. But good or bad for the country, we don't know. We'll have to make sure that the balance is always set. And I'm looking for a good leader from the Democratic side to kind of even the scales. We'll see. So Coffee County was one place that was being highlighted. Now, what has also happened is, of those 18, 4 have pled guilty and they are receiving probation and fines. The trial for the remaining who pleaded not guilty is pending. Of course, Trump is one of them. He has pled not guilty. The case began in February 2021, led by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. I told you about it, the conflict of interest and all those things. And she has since been disqualified. Now, the 2020 election itself, Trump had claimed that there is going to be voter fraud. So they had some inkling that in some states there is going to be fraud. Maybe it has been happening for a while and they were aware that these currents would come again, and therefore they wanted to raise the flag ahead of time to say that, look out, make sure that the elections are conducted fairly, appropriately, and that there are no fake votes. Now, like I said before, Trump saw that he was leading in the night and he declared victory, only to find in the morning that the mail-in ballots had completely overturned his lead, and he ended up losing Georgia. Not only that, the 2 senators from Georgia also came from Democrat, giving them a lead in the Senate. Today, it's not the case. Today, everything is Republican, the House, the Senate, as well as the White House. So there is chance that legislation will move quickly, and that whatever changes, that whiz-bang changes that Trump is suggesting, especially the bill that he wants to bring in, that might actually quickly move through the ranks, and he might be able to sign most of the things he is bringing it in as into law. So that is a thing that's going to happen in the next few weeks or so. Now, there's also another allegation as part of this case that Trump associates accessed voting systems in Coffee County, copying data from machines. Now, If it is a lawsuit, the judge will ask people to go and look at this thing and give permission to look at the data. Otherwise, I don't think that is allowed. So that is one of the things that they may be in the dock for, especially the attorney Sree Paul, and because there are video footage and testimonies showing her accessing that data or her group doing it. That will be something that will, I think, play out again. But what are the things that are in play? For that particular incident, there are 4 people who are facing charges, because that's not Trump who did it. And Trump and Giuliani accused Fulton County election workers Ruby Freeman and Vandria Moss of fraud. Actually, they successfully appealed and sued Giuliani for defamation, resulting in a $148 million judgment against Giuliani. I don't think he has paid. I don't think he has the ability to pay either. So I don't know what happened to that case. Maybe if we get some information, we'll give you a highlight on that later. Now, what happened as far as the voters of Georgia were concerned? Well, the voters of Georgia believe that the state should halt this case against Donald Trump. The sentiment was revealed in a recent Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll in collaboration with the University of Georgia School of Public and International Affairs. So a university and a pollster conducted a poll, and what they found was 51% of surveyed voters want the case dropped. 47 believe the prosecution should continue. The survey's margin of error is 3.1% point. So if you have 3.1, if you add that to 47, that still comes to only 50. So which means that even the worst case against the Republican, there's still more people saying that there should be no case. I think that is where this is headed. This is what I think is going to happen. Now, the survey was conducted after the Georgia Court of Appeals ruled to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from the case. And the reason she cited was her romantic relationship with that person, Nathan Wade. Now, people can say, well, you are looking at through a partisan lens, and that all Republicans will vote one way and all Democrats will vote one way, and it depends upon how the survey was conducted. The survey is wrong, the usual stuff that comes with a survey. But whatever it is, this case can still proceed to a higher court. The only thing that needs to happen is, because the Democrats have lost, they need something to get back into the game, and they might go back and persuade the Georgia lawmakers and say, look, we have to fight this thing till the very end, perhaps even till the Supreme Court of the United States. I don't think Trump is going to get deterred by any of this. He's going to just keep moving fast. So we'll have to wait and see how that happens. That's one side. The next one is, there was a Senate runoff race, and by that time, people had proved that around 4,000 voters were illegal and that they should be not allowed to vote during the runoff, which happened after the 2020 elections. And the case comes up astonishingly in front of a judge who happens to be the sister of Stacey Abrams, a senior Democratic functionary at that time. What should the sister have done? She should have recused herself from the case. Instead, she not only did not recuse herself, she ruled against the purge of those 4,000 votes. So what ended up happening was that the runoff also went the Democrats' way. So Republicans were very, very, very upset about what happened in Georgia, because they considered Georgia as a red state. And I think this time they were more careful, more vigilant. They made sure no hanky-panky would happen, because there are some videos. Again, these are something that I saw on the social media, but now who can say what is relevant, what is real, and what is not real? But whatever it is, the fraud that was alleged in 2020 doesn't seem to have been committed, although there are some results that are still showing, pointing a finger towards a fraud of some kind. But overall, I think 2024 kind of restored the balance and the confidence of people in the electoral system of the United States. But I would always say you have to have a uniform, consistent way for the entire country to vote in a certain way. In fact, I would be so bold to suggest that have the election process for the president and the vice president, those two main job, those two. And you can add more people afterwards. Use it using blockchain, and also have it being available for anyone to vote from their phone. Because then what happens is the blockchain will make sure fake voters won't come in. The Constitution is very clear about who can vote. The Constitution is very clear that you have to be a US citizen. So the software will be able to look at your face and then immediately tell you that yes, you can vote or you cannot vote. This will take out a lot of the so-called floating population and all these lousy, what I would say, ludicrous, ridiculous, whatever you want to call it, rules like California saying no voter ID is required. What bullshit reason are they giving for that? Nothing. They're just riding roughshod over everybody because they have a 70% Democratic state. This is going to change. By the way, it swung 10% away from the Democrats in the 2024 elections. It's now a 60-40 state. And in a few years, it will become Republican. Absolutely confident about that. So whatever it is, the point I'm trying to make is it's time to vote differently for America. Use blockchain, use the technology. If we are world leaders in technology, goddammit, let's show it. Let's show it to the world how elections can be done, because you will get near 100% voting. In fact, you can even penalize people for not voting if you want. So that's my 2 cents to this. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.